Welcome to the Flourish with Functional Nutrition podcast. I'm your host, Madeline Lowry, founder of Twin Cities Nutritional Therapy and Mind Remap for Health, and a nutritional therapy and MAP method practitioner specializing in allergies and sensitivities, chronic fatigue, chronic pain, sleep issues, and chronic health conditions. Join me for episode 42, where we talk with my client, Kathy James, about her experience with the advanced neural retraining technique known as the MAP method for stage 4 breast cancer, alongside conventional treatments. We discuss the book Radical Remission by Kelly A. Turner, PhD, and the 3 radical remission factors that we worked on using the MAP method. Hear Kathy talk about the connection between stuck emotions and cancer, and why releasing them was a key to her recovery. As always, we must disclaim that the information we share in the podcast is for educational purposes only. As MAP method practitioners, we do not diagnose or treat disease, and we recommend working with a qualified practitioner. Now, let's hear from Kathy. Well, welcome, Kathy. I'm really excited to have you on my show.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, and thank you for agreeing to come and talk about some of your experiences with using the MAP method, along with other treatment methods for your health issues. So, welcome, and tell us a little bit about yourself and how you found the MAP method and why you decided to try it.
All right. Well, I'm a licensed massage therapist, and I enjoyed learning a lot of different techniques, cranio-sacral, matrix energetics, pranic healing, emotional freedom technique, Reiki healing touch. And all of those have an emotional release component to them, because I think the founders of all of those realize that, we do store emotions in our body, and that when you do body work as a massage therapist, emotions are bound to come up for your client, and whether they tell you that or not. But I mean, often when I would have someone on the table, they'd start crying, and the emotions were being released at that time. And so I've always been drawn to that. When I found out about MAP, it was kind of a natural progression to. I'm someone who loves to learn new things, and it was something that when I found out that you did that as a technique, that I wanted to to try it. When I was doing one interesting thing as a massage therapist, my main practice was cranio-sacral therapy. And almost all my clients were women about my age who had been abused in their youth. And it was kind of like the wounded healer, because I too had been abused in my youth. And then here I was attracting clients that had similar issues, to myself. And so one more thing about myself. 7 years ago, I was diagnosed with cancer, and 4 years ago, it became a diagnosis of stage 4. So having a diagnosis of cancer is, initially very, very terrifying, and you start thinking, how am I going to go through this journey? And I've always been a little bit of a rebel regards conventional medical care. And I tried a lot of alternative things first. When I met, in fact, initially I didn't even really have a diagnosis like a biopsy. I just noticed that there was an indentation on my breast that was kind of permanent. It almost like I used to say it was like the Pillsbury Doughboy, where someone stuck a finger in, and like this indentation would happen and it wouldn't release. And I was going to 2 MDs at the time who were alternative. And they both said, oh, yes, that's cancer. And they both had things that they were open to trying with me. And so I didn't even have a biopsy until the next year, when a girlfriend sort of twisted my arm to pursue this a little further to see, well, what kind of breast cancer was it? And, kind of open up that whole door. But then when I saw the surgeon, she wanted to do a mastectomy right away. And I said I wanted to wait. And I waited a whole year, still trying some alternative things. But then eventually, when I could feel that the lump inside the breast was growing, I decided to do the surgery. Oh, and then, one of the how I met you, which is how I got to learn about MAP, because I don't know how I would have done that, is one of the things that I was doing, I signed up for this year-long course with Lynn McTaggart on the power of intention, and you were in it, and we were put in the same group, and, eventually I learned what you did, and, it was something I wanted to try, and I think something you thought might be beneficial because you knew my health history, and, that's how I came to MAP, the first time.
So when you came to your first map session,
Mhm.
you were trying to maybe you can just set the stage a little bit. So stage 4 breast cancer
Right.
also had gone to the bone,
Right, the bone and the abdomen.
and
Yeah,
we had been in our group that so the Power of Eight groups that Limerick Taggart organizes. It's a group of, well, in our case, we started out with 12 people that
right,
get together once a week and they do intentions for each other. So it's sort of holding an intention for one member of the group for 10 minutes at a time. And so we had done some intentions for you around cancer and being free of cancer and
right.
having full recovery, wanting to be in full remission, right? So I think that's kind of where we were, I think, when you had your first map session. Do you remember what that was like, coming to your first map session, what you decided to work on? What were you hoping for, I guess?
Yeah, so I've thought about the first MAP session, and I would say that in the first session, like, I didn't really know what to expect, and I wasn't quite sure how it worked, and I would say that I didn't go away from the session thinking, "Wow, like, that really nailed that one thing I had." And I think for some people, like, who have a fear of heights, they might know, "Do I still have the fear of heights?" It's easy to measure. They either do or they don't. It's a little black and white. For me, I intuited that this was a technique that was going to be helpful to me after the first session. I did feel more calm and relaxed after the session. I don't remember what we worked on specifically. I think that as we went along, and maybe we've had 8 sessions together, I've gotten better at kind of identifying what things are showing up in my life. Like, one of the things about MAP for me is it's made me more mindful of what I'm thinking. And so as I go along in my day, it's like, wow, I just thought of my ex-boyfriend like, 5 times, and that brought up something for me, like anger or feelings of unworthiness because he jilted me, or, just whatever. And then it's like, I wanna work on that with Madeline, that's showing up for a reason. And so that, I mean, even that's been lovely, just the sense of mindfulness and seeing what my thoughts are thinking, like, to be able to catch them as I'm thinking them and realizing that they're showing up for a reason, especially in doing MAP, that, this is something for you and I to, to work on and to diffuse, if I can
Yes.
use that word. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. So what I remember about maybe the first one or two sessions with you is it was emotional topics
mhm.
having to do with relationships, maybe a theme of betrayal,
Right.
right?
Yes.
And um, and I remember you kind of feeling like these memories are pretty intense for you. They were pretty painful.
Mhm.
By the
Yes.
end, I had the feeling that you felt lighter about them, less burdened by them.
Yes.
Can you talk about that? Like how you experienced that?
Yeah, and I would say, and this is maybe more how I would have ended our podcast, but I would say the thing that MAP has given me most is this sense of peace, like a true sense of peace, because my husband cheated on me, and then my boyfriend cheated on me, and things in my past with, childhood trauma and everything. There was a lot of lies and secrets and betrayal and just a lot of that. And I thought I'd worked through some of it, like with a therapist and everything, but they were still there. And I knew they were eating on me. And, when I say those words, I think of cancer eating on me. I feel this connection with those emotions and what's going on physically in my body. But I would say now, and even you're right, after those first few sessions, I can think about these people, my ex-husband, my ex-boyfriend, and not have this stuff stir up almost on a cellular level of kind of anger, but unworthiness on my part, and I feel more at peace. My sleep is better now than it has been. I used to wake up like 4 times a night easily, and use the bathroom and everything, and now I wake up just once a night, and it shocks me still when that happens, when the second time I wake up is the time to wake up. And it's not like, "Oh, it's not 1:30, it's actually 5:30, my normal waking time." And that's been lovely. Just living with peace, with this more sense of, calm and joy. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. So I like to remind, to point out to people that the MAP method, with the MAP method, we work with painful emotional memories. I mean, that's one way we can work. It's one kind of entry point. We can also work directly with symptoms or directly with a disempowering belief that you realize you have, or like you talked about the thoughts, right? Things that keep coming up for you that you think, why is this in my head still, right? Um, so that can be an entry point as well. But so what I like to point out is that people most often feel emotional shifts, like after the first couple of 1 or 2 sessions, right? They're starting to feel emotional shifts. And then after a few more sessions, they're starting to feel like mental shifts, like mental patterns start to change. And then after that, the physical shifts happen.
mhm,
And this is kind of like in the order that they were created as well, right? It's like
mm,
the emotional trauma happens, but then it's, when it's been stuck or it's been reinforced by other experiences in life, right? Then it starts to contribute to these strategies, maybe, that we call them, like mental strategies, people pleasing, caretaking, or other personality traits, perfectionism, that require that we suppress our own feelings and our own needs in the service of others or in the
uh,
service of something else. And then the physical patterns, what we call symptoms, like that's kind of the last phase of change.
mhm,
And it lags because if that's, you know that it was created after many many years of, right, these other patterns playing on us. Does that make sense?
yeah, it does totally make sense, and it's actually why I think that I have cancer because of emotional things that happened that perhaps I wasn't willing to deal with totally at the time, or even knew how to deal with them. And I do think that they clearly became thoughts, recurring thoughts, that mind racing kind of thoughts. But, I do think that is one of the reasons why, I have cancer. But I do think that MAP also has helped me physically, because it definitely has helped emotionally with releasing a lot of thoughts I've had, particularly about relationships, but almost any area of my life. But physically, it's helped too because we started working together, maybe October, November of last year, but then because of the cancer in my abdomen, I spent 3 separate times in the hospital in December, finally winding up with almost a complete bowel obstruction because of the cancer, and was put in hospice. And then my oncologist pulled me out to continue a treatment that, I of course, has had some success because I'm still here. But at the same time, we continued to work at least like once every 3 weeks. We would have a session, and we would just keep, I'm sure everyone knows it's like an onion, just peeling the layers off. What comes up next? We clear that. What comes up next? And I would attribute still being here and feeling really good, not just to the chemo. I give it I give it partial credit, but I really think that, getting rid of some of these stuck emotions is exactly what I needed to feel better physically. And one of the other classes that I was taking was Radical Remission.
Mm.
And this woman who was a PhD student at the time was looking at what do people who have a radical remission, what's in common with them? Because then maybe she could help others. And she came up with 9 things, and now there's 10. But one of the things was, releasing stuck emotions, repressed emotions. And we've worked a lot on that. And I don't know how else I would have done it without MAP. Because I've tried. I mean, I've tried a lot of different body work techniques. I tried working with a therapist, and I still had stuck emotions. And I know that I have shifted away from those. That I am 100% confident that we have tackled a lot of that was detrimental to all levels of health, emotional, physical, yeah,
Yeah.
spiritual, even.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I recall something from one of our early sessions.
Mhm.
Um, you've been talking about your childhood and, the abuse that you endured then. And I
Mhm.
remember that we found this belief, I can't defend myself, right? There
Mhm.
was and we worked on this belief. And at that time I thought, oh my gosh, we've got to clear this belief, because if I can't defend myself, when you imply that on a physiological level, we're
Mhm.
talking about immune system, right?
Right. Yes.
Like not even coming online, like just watching stuff go by, like, yeah, well, it's there, but I can't, I don't have the resources. I can't, whatever, for whatever,
Yes.
whatever that looks like. I thought this is not something we want someone who has cancer to have anymore.
Right.
And so I remember working on that belief, and I was really hopeful that you were going to see some kind of shift, after that session. But I do have to point out here that you actually got worse for the first few months that we worked together, and that this was
Well, though, like in homeopathy, people do get worse before they get better. They go through that healing crisis. So it's interesting because every time I've had something where it looks like I'm getting a little worse, and it might not even be cancer related, it might be another symptom I had a while back that has shown itself, I'm almost happy because I feel like it's almost part of the healing is to work backwards through these things. So I mean, I almost died, so it was a little that was a little too close to the to the edge there, but maybe that's what it took. And I do feel that my body has a lot of innate intelligence and intuition, and I think it took me on a journey that was for my own good and for teaching and perhaps to find you in this method. And I mean, I'm open to all of those beliefs that, there's a reason. I mean, another one of my beliefs is that I'm not going to die from this, that it has been a gift. I have learned so much. I have a group of people that, follow me through my emails that support me and hope for me and love me and send me healing energy. And that's all been just miraculous to me. So, so I am ready to be finished with cancer. 7 years has been enough. I'm ready to put that burden down and go on to learning in a different way than from the cancer. But
yeah.
yeah, but I am very thankful to MAP. I literally do not know how else I would have unstuck emotions, which is one of the 9 things of the radical remission things. I don't know. Maybe other people can do it by some other therapy or wishing it away or something. But MAP has really done it for me. It's, when it happens, it has stayed. I don't feel like I've regressed. If something comes up that's still around, say, ex-boyfriend that we worked on, it's another issue. It's not like the same issue reinserting itself. It's the onion peeling and this next issue that looked a little like the first one, but was enough different that we need to peel it away as well. So
Yeah. 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 So let's talk a little bit about Kelly Turner's book and
Yeah.
her work. So Kelly Turner, PhD, you talked about her.
Hmm.
She ran the class that you took. She wrote a book called Radical Remission, Surviving Cancer Against All Odds. And she studied thousands, I think, thousands of cases of radical remission from cancer.
Yes.
And she came up with this. She wanted to figure out what are the common themes here, right? What
Mhm.
are the components of these radical remissions? And she came up with nine, as you said, now there are 10, but nine original factors: changing your diet, taking control of your health, following your intuition, using herbs and supplements,
Mhm.
releasing suppressed emotions, increasing positive emotions,
Mhm.
embracing social support, deepening your spiritual connection, having strong reasons for living. Those were the original nine.
Right.
And number 10,
Mhm.
which shouldn't be surprising to anyone, was exercise.
Right. And she didn't include that initially because people were exercising not in a way like going to the gym, and so she didn't catch it, but they were walking their dog or they were doing gardening or something, and she didn't quite, yeah, so she finally realized that that's one that's helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, when we worked together, so like maybe after the first three sessions or so, you wanted to use this framework, and you would ask me, is there anything here that we need to work with? And so I think we worked through at least three of these factors. So, like releasing the suppressed emotions, like you talked about,
Mhm.
increasing positive emotions,
Right.
and strengthening reasons for living. Do you want to talk about those?
Yeah, in the strengthening reasons for living, I was feeling like even though I had a brand new grandson, my first, I was still feeling like I don't know if I have a reason to live. And when I say those words, I think other people would think, oh, she was depressed. But I didn't feel depressed. I didn't feel depression. It was just like, as I looked at my life, I just kind of wasn't sure if I had a reason to live. And we did work on that. And I can't pinpoint like, oh, yes, I now know I need to finish that book or, some big project. It's just more like that's just not an issue anymore. I just feel inside myself I want to live. I have a reason to live. And so that was big because I wasn't quite sure how to come at that any other way. Because looking at my life, I mean, both my kids are in. I'm in St. Louis. Both my kids are in St. Louis. They're close by. I being a mother is important to me. You would think all those things would be kind of enough, but I still wasn't quite there. And MAP really helped that, like 100%. So that clearly, was one. The releasing stuck emotions, we've talked about that. The increasing positive emotions. I've been, always a optimistic and I think a fairly positive person, but it was definitely helpful to. I mean, in some ways, it was in getting rid of those thoughts that either whether it was about my mother or about my ex-husband or my ex-boyfriend, that were just grinding away in my brain, and causing angst when I thought about them. That real so I don't know if I would have phrased it that way, increasing positive emotions, but it's more like the sense of peace that I mentioned in the beginning. I now have a sense of peace and joy that like permeates on a cellular level. And it's a gift that's incredible. I mean, I I actually don't know how I would have gotten there some other way. I mean, maybe some people do drugs, but that's not me. So it's been lovely. I think that I've gotten some of these radical remission things and even deepening my spiritual connections, I think MAP has helped with because I mean, it's when one isn't mired in stuck emotions and recurring thoughts that don't have that are kind of negative and some anger and some self-worth things, you're on a different scale of being able to have a spiritual connection. And I do feel that since we've been working together, my spiritual connection has deepened and increased.
Yeah. Yeah. So, as you mentioned, we did about 8 sessions together.
Mhm.
Yeah, I guess What advice would you have for someone else in your situation who has cancer,
Mhm.
that is kind of looking for something more than what Western medicine can offer? What advice would you have for them?
Well, after I was diagnosed with cancer, 2 women friends that I have were diagnosed, and they would call me, and they knew I was doing kind of alternative stuff, and they asked me kind of that question, like, "What do I suggest?" And I said, "I have spent my lifetime developing my thought patterns around health and healing and alternative things and stuff, and, they're mine, and they're what I believe." And I said, "You can't just step into my belief system and take it on as your own. You have your current one, you have this diagnosis. You have to go with what you believe. And if you believe that doing your research right now is too onerous and you should just that your best chance of survival is doing what your oncologist says, then you should 100% do that." Because I believe thoughts are all powerful. I think that if going against what they think, there's all this fear and questioning whether you're doing the right thing, then you shouldn't do it. You should do what you believe will help you. And for some people, that is following what traditional medicine says, because that makes sense to that person. But for me, I I mean, I am a bit of a rebel about that stuff. And for me just to go along with the oncologist without, questioning and doing some research and, coming up with what I feel makes sense for me, that wouldn't feel right. So I do believe that people have to go with uh, following their intuition, doing what their heart tells them in the moment. Um, and being willing to, maybe for them it's not alternative things, but maybe think more complementary. Oncologists are more willing to look at diet and supplements, which are part of the radical remission thing, and support groups like, the hospital system I'm associated with. They offer support groups, they offer psychological counseling all for free. So there are these things that are available to them that can help in a radical remission sense with one of those 9 things, that they should consider. I mean, I would tell them that they should try MAP. I mean, definitely. I mean, because I don't know how else with, when you get a diagnosis of cancer, all of a sudden your timeline got shorter. Not that you're gonna die, but just things are immediate. You become really clear of the present, and you don't have time to do 4 years of psychotherapy, hoping to unstick some emotions, or, your mother locked you in the glove compartment when you were a child, and, just dealing with all that. But I think MAP is, and I've done a lot in my life. I think MAP is the most efficient and long-lasting and effective and more bang for the buck than any other treatment that I've ever been involved with.
Wow, and that's saying a lot because
Yeah, I've
you've
done a lot. I
done
Yeah,
a lot. You've
yeah,
been a practitioner of a lot of things.
right.
So, for the person that's interested in MAP,
Mhm,
perhaps for to support them in their cancer journey or any other chronic illness kind of
mhm,
journey, can you just maybe you can help to sketch out sort of where you were October, November. We talked about this a little bit, but I just want to kind of sum it up. Where you
uh-huh,
were last October, November when we started working together, and where you like how that journey proceeded and where you are now. Like, I
mhm,
know you're not out of the woods,
mhm,
like 100%, but
right.
maybe you can just help us understand sort of that progression.
Yeah, in starting with MAP, I really did believe that it would help the cancer, but it wasn't my focus. It was more that I thought it would help with the emotional stuff, which then would help with the cancer and the physical body. But I really did intuit and knew that there was a lot of emotional stuff that needed clearing that I could find some resolution and peace with. And with each map session that we did, December got kind of dicey with the whole hospitalization stuff. But with each map session we did, I think I understood map better. I understood what I could bring to the session that would make the session more effective. Because between sessions, I started being more mindful. I started recognizing that, oh, my mom, or all my interactions with my mom just bring up this angst. And I don't even want to talk to her on a daily basis because I call her every day, da 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 da. And I would realize, okay, that's something that came up for a reason. It's been that way for 65 years. This is coming up for a reason that is so in my consciousness and my awareness. And I would bring to map sessions things that were lit up for me because it was kind of my body telling me, this is the next thing that we can work on. Not maybe that we should work on, but we can. This is important. This is something that we should clear for the next thing to bubble up to the surface to see what it is. So I do think our map sessions together got better and better. And it wasn't a question of your skill. It was more a question of me understanding what I needed to bring to the session that was in the moment, important and, would do the most good for my health, my benefit.
Yeah, no, so that's helpful. So just reflecting on those, so we worked on some memories of relationships in the past that were still painful, and I heard you say that those memories became more neutral
Yeah.
and stayed that way, right? So it wasn't
Yes.
like a temporary effect. It was,
Yes. Yeah. And really, I'd found out that my husband had been cheating on me for 18 months. And there was self-worth stuff, there was abandonment stuff, there was all these things. And now, he was over at my house the other day because we had to talk about a few things. And, you know, I just had good thoughts about him. Nothing came up like, you lying, cheating son of a gun kind of thing. It was, there was, yeah, I loved him for a long time. I still felt love towards him and didn't have a lot of negative things. So it really did hold, and it kind of shifted my whole thought pattern regards any of the people that we did regards relationships.
yeah,
And
including currently active relationships like
yeah,
your mother. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
like my mom. Yeah, and even my ex, my ex-husband, because we still deal with each other because there's still some kid stuff that we deal with, even though my children are adults, and then some financial things that we still have to deal with. But it's nice to be able to be in a relationship with him, how little it is, but be in a relationship with him where I don't have negative thoughts about him or feelings of anger or stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really do feel peace regards that.
Yeah. So, what I was hoping you could do is sketch out for us sort of where your health was in October, November, so that people can really get the
Yeah,
difference between what you were experiencing at that time, uh,
right.
even having been in our intention group for 9 months, right? But where
Right.
you were at,
Mhm.
and sort of how that progressed, through the December chapter, and then where you are now.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So every time I'd have treatment, there would be blood work done. And one of the things that she would do blood work on is a cancer antigen number, where if you're between 0 and 25, that's considered normal because everyone has some inflammation in their body. Uh, and mine was, really high even in November and stuff. Um, and I would say in October and November, I was beginning to feel a lot of abdominal stuff, but I was kind of ignoring it a little, just like, oh, maybe this is just normal indigestion or whatever. And then it morphed into something really bad in December where it became almost a complete bowel obstruction. And so physically, I kind of went downhill from the October, November, December, but we kept working. And then I came out of hospice in the early part of January, started treatment. We kept working on MAP. And it's just gotten better and better. I mean, I was able, to eat again, and now I feel, even with the chemo treatments, I feel relatively normal. I have hardly any symptoms, even from the treatment, and I would say maybe nothing from the cancer. And the antigen number went from the mid 700s to now like 33, and so I am edging closer to the 25, which is good. I mean, one thing we probably need to work on is when it goes below 25, my oncologist would like me to stay on the chemo.
Mhm.
And I would like her to do a CT scan and see how it's looking and maybe go off the chemo, just because my belief system about even though I don't have very many side effects, the chemo is still a very powerful, corrosive drug. And, I hope to be here a long time. I want to give my body every possible chance to be healthy on that journey. So I don't know if that
Yeah.
answers the question, but I'm doing really, really well.
Yeah, I mean, remarkable, right?
Remarkably well.
So when we talk about a radical remission, I'm not sure what the definition is, but would that equate to having a cancer antigen number of less of 25 or less? I mean, would you
So
consider that?
I think that she would say the CT scan would be more her yardstick of whether there was seeable cancer or not. Even though my cancer has, like some people, the cancer antigen number means nothing. That they can have a high one, but a CT scan shows them totally clear. But for me, it was tracking. So she feels pretty confident that when it's going lower, things are getting better. And when it goes higher, things are getting worse. So she is tracking that. But I think she would say a CT scan and then maybe a bone scan for the bone part of it. But,
Mm, yeah,
um,
maybe this would be a good point for you to talk a little bit about what it's like to be in a map session. So for people who have never heard of this before. Let me just explain that the MAP method is a method of neural retraining. It's an advanced method of neural retraining, I'd say. And um, with it, the practitioner, it's like a partnership, really, kind of like between the practitioner and the client. Practitioner is offering instructions to your subconscious mind, which your subconscious mind is free to accept or deny or to implement at whatever level it feels is appropriate for you. And with this method, we're working directly with the subconscious. We are harnessing the power of the subconscious, which knows everything that's ever happened to you, all consciously held and unconsciously held memories, and your subconscious mind is able to rewire itself based on instructions that the practitioner gives. Now, every time I give this little introduction to the MAP method, I always think like, oh gosh, people are going to think like, what the heck is she talking about? And where is the computer that's going to rewire my brain, right? Like, what kind of equipment do I have to be hooked up to, right? Because I know people think of like neurofeedback or
mm.
I don't know, other modalities that are more technology related. How would you describe your experience of a session and what it's like?
Right. But first I want to talk about, you said about the computer hooked up the brain. Actually, what I think of when you talk about the mapping, I think, oh, it's magic. Yeah, yeah, she's doing magic. And and I know that probably is not how you want people to view it, but I'm okay with magic. And because it does seem sort of too good to be true, that the woman who developed this figured it out, and it's remarkable and amazing and does work, but it does almost feel like, well, that's too easy, too good to be true. And the too easy part, I think, can be a detriment for some people, because some people actually do need something hard, that they really worked through it, and then it's worth something. Where I'm the opposite. I'm like, I will take easy. I'm okay with easy. It's all right if you can, if my superconscious rewires my brain and these emotions fall away that were not serving me, and that I feel peace. I will take that as easy as you can give it. But for me, the map session, um, first we talk about what I want to work on in that session, and we make sure we're both on the same page. So we talk it through enough so that we both understand, what's going on. And then I usually close my eyes as you're giving the superconscious the direction. And, it's just, I don't really think of anything, but I have noticed that it's, to keep track of thoughts that come up. And sometimes they're really unrelated to the issue that I thought we were working on. But I've learned to tell you what came up because somehow my superconscious knows what I don't know. And so I've learned to trust that we might be working on abandonment issues. And then all of a sudden, this memory from childhood comes up that seems pretty like, like, like it shouldn't have any emotional zing to it, but then we work on it, and usually within the session, I get the connection. I get how this falls into place with what else we've been working on. It usually jumps like that. We work on the first thing and kind of clear it, and then I think you might muscle test to see whether, there's more to that particular issue to work on, and then we take it to another level, but it looks the same. I mean, I once again close my eyes, and, the superconscious is doing its job. Um, and I just stay as mindful as I can. And sometimes nothing comes up, and then we can just muscle test us. If I don't have another thing to work on, but we still have time, you have a bag of tricks where, we can muscle test either around the radical remission things are about belief systems, like, what belief systems would serve me. And I talk about why I think I'm not going to die from cancer. And one of them is if you have B blood types, you don't die as often as other people. And I have a B blood type and just things like that. And then you send me an email at the end of the session with those beliefs that help kind of secure it in my brain that, having these strong beliefs are part of my healing process. And they're beliefs I already held, but it's nice to have them kind of all compacted like that. I don't know if that's helpful to your audience.
Yeah.
I I I mean, it's painless. You don't have to relive that horrible trauma in childhood. There's none of that. Um, I think that it has helped me, and I would hope it helps other people be more mindful of what's going on with their thoughts throughout, even when they're not in the map session. Um, yeah, and I think there is no pressure to necessarily know exactly what you need to work on, because sometimes it is hidden pretty deep, that exact thing. And sometimes there are just some layers, and it's okay to work on the lesser thing. And maybe there's a sense of safety then, that people might need to take it slower at first and develop this rapport with you, and have the sense of safety that this is okay. This technique is not going to hurt them in and of itself.
So, do you have any sensation of the rewiring process?
Hmm. Well, I do know that I often feel a sense of, okay, so calm came up, peace came up, the sense of like a sigh, like, oh, okay, oh, just, yeah, that something left my body, and now there's part even physically that I can relax a little and not need to be as guarded. Yeah, there's been that. I'm trying to think of. Oh, I have cried a few times. I mean, not like big sobs, but tears have come up during a map session. But I mean, usually kind of almost cleansing relief kind of tears versus tears of reliving something that was painful.
Mm,
Uh,
mhm.
there have been a lot of aha moments where I see the connection between things that I never understood the connection before, and I don't know if it's crucial to the healing that I understood the connections, but I'm the type of person that really enjoys seeing that connection. I like that as part of the session, and that might just be something that I bring to it or that's important to me, and so my superconscious has given me that gift. I don't know.
Yeah. So, just so people understand, so this rewiring process, as you described, your eyes are closed, I'm talking to you, so we're sitting on a Zoom video conference, right? You're in St. Louis, Missouri, I'm up here in Minneapolis, Minnesota. The distance doesn't matter. I have clients in many other countries around the world. But we're sitting on a Zoom video conference and we are just talking, like we're having a little chat, right? I mean, so we kind of set up the session at the beginning. We decide what the subject is. You tell me what the emotions are around this subject, this memory, this belief, this person, this situation, and how strong those are, how strong the emotions are. And then we take that as an entry point, right? We start working with that. And I'm offering instructions just like this. I'm talking to your subconscious mind, and your subconscious mind is like, oh, I know what to do with that. And it starts to, find the related memories and neutralize them, right? And some people have a sensation of this, not everyone, but some people have a sensation like where they feel a little dizzy, a little lightheaded, or they have REM eye movements. Some people
Mm.
tell me they feel tingling in their brain
Wow.
or on their scalp or something. Other people tell me they feel things, body sensations come up, like come and go.
Wow.
Oh, my heart started to beat really fast, or my throat started to constrict, or I have this pain that came up in my neck, or
Mm.
I had goosebumps, all over my arms when you said that, or my legs started to tremble or shake, this and probably other things that I'm not thinking of now are all kind of related to the rewiring process.
Wow.
Yeah. In some cases, I think what I feel is that traumas which have been stored in the body have been released, like much like what you described with massage therapy.
Mhm.
As I'm giving instructions, and the superconscious is going and finding these memories to fully process them in a way that they hadn't been before. They had been kind of like captured and frozen and somaticized, and then people start to feel like that tingling or the gut, like some sensation in the gut that kind of arises but then is released, or like like a flash headache or something. And I think that's like some trauma being let go, being released.
Mm.
So I get all kinds of descriptions. I was just curious to see if you had
Yeah. Yeah.
any
For
sensations.
the most, I think what usually happens for me is just this sense of calm and peace, that kind of a sigh, kind of, okay, like we worked, yeah, that was good, work through that one and ready for the next.
Yeah.
Yeah. But now that you've said that, when I do a map session next, I'm going
Yeah.
to be, yeah, paying attention just physically if anything comes up. Yeah.
So, is there anything else that you wish you had known before you had that first map session that would have made you feel a little bit more comfortable about signing up for it or trying?
Well, now knowing that it works, and it probably works for everyone, I mean, for someone just coming and saying, "This works, this is worth it, try it." Though for me, that's not a high barrier because I have the resources and time and the interest to try new things. So, for me, I jump into a lot of things not really knowing what I'm jumping into. For someone else, especially if you have a kind of a dire physical thing going on, a chronic illness, or things that just have been with you a long time, or arthritis or lupus or cancer or whatever, you know this is worth it. This would be, this is something that is worth you trying, and not just one time. I do think that someone, like, say, fear of heights, they can have a one time moment where then they no longer fear heights. But I think something that when you have a chronic illness, there is a lot to work on. And if you want to give MAP a try, give it 5 sessions. Just dedicate yourself to 5 sessions, and be very conscious of how you felt before you started the sessions. Because sometimes you can say, well, I don't feel much different, not truly remembering, how bad you were feeling. Um, yeah. I mean, I mean, if I mean, I wish I was younger, because then I think I would get certified in MAP and then do a whole practice of it and help people, but right now it's enough for me, to get my own health, going. But it's amazing. It's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I want to point out to people that though, it is helpful for people with chronic health issues, the physical aspects of the chronic health issues, it's also helpful even just on an emotional level. Like even if all going through cancer or having a significant diagnosis, you have a lot of traumas. There's a lot of traumas associated with that. All those, yeah, the trauma of being diagnosed, like the symptoms, watching your level of function decline, and
Well, and one thing is a lot of people, other people's belief systems, like my oncologist belief systems, when she says something, and then do I take that on for, so yeah, there is a lot. But you're right. I mean, even just the everyday person who is basically healthy, there's a ton that you can get from releasing your stuck emotions. One, you might not have to go through what I went through. I mean, you might be able to not ride that horse ever in your life. And that's a gift.
I mean, avoiding the diagnosis.
Avoiding the diagnosis
Yeah,
because you handled your stuck emotions and your fears, and you're not feeling safe, and your, unworthiness. Just, I mean, and just as humans, I mean, we all have some of that. No one's free of that.
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I think of a client that I worked with earlier today who came to see me not because of health issues, but because of lifelong anxiety.
Mhm.
And he's had 2 sessions. And we got together today for his third session, and he said, what changes have you noticed? And even after the first session, he was reporting feeling more calm, more peaceful, not having this the racing thoughts and the um I don't know, all the anxieties that had plagued him. He said, I was, just telling someone who was visiting or something about this, and he said, and it certainly occurred to me, like, yeah, I've only had 2 sessions, and he said, 40 years of anxiety
Mm,
has
mm.
dissipated,
Wow.
you know, and I, it doesn't mean that we won't feel anxious about anything ever again, right? Like that's not what this is about.
Right.
It's not about removing your ability to feel emotions. It's about it's about kind of releasing those patterns that amplify those emotions when they do arise.
Mhm.
So yeah, things are life is going to keep happening. You may feel anxious about something in the future, but the anxiety then should only be about what is actually happening in the moment, right?
Right.
It shouldn't be amped up by
Right.
the patterns
Right.
of anxiety from the past, right? That kind of feed and exacerbate what's going on in the present. And when you
Right.
can
And
let
that cause
go,
you not to function in your life
yeah,
and to not have joy and
yeah,
peace. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Right. Yeah, well, so many people these days are suffering from anxiety and depression. Yeah, I'm glad that you find it helping people with that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And so, even for so I guess I brought that up because I was thinking, like, even for the person who wants the Western medicine approach, is happy with that treatment plan, but there's still a lot of painful emotions around just being a cancer patient, right?
Mhm.
And even if all you are interested in is some emotional relief, it's it's fairly quick. So
Right.
within a couple 3 sessions, even that could just help you be more at peace and be able to participate in whatever your chosen path is for treatment, in a better way.
Mhm.
And I do think that when we have a lot of these stuck emotional patterns, it does make us more prone to being that sympathetic dominant person who's stuck in the fight or flight response. And anytime we are stuck in the fight or flight response for longer than we optimally should be, that is preventing restorative functions, any restorative functions of the body from operating, right? So we need to be in that parasympathetic response if we want to heal from from a disease, from a condition. And so again, by taking down that like the emotional stressors, then it just creates a space for healing, I think, because then you can be in that rest, digest, and heal mode of the autonomic nervous system for more of the time, and that will help any treatment, any therapy that you are working with will be more effective just because of that. You're just giving
Yes.
yourself the best chance to optimally accept the goodness of this therapy, whatever therapy you're trying, whether it's chemo, radiation, pharmaceuticals,
Right.
acupuncture, any of those modalities. So, well, I thank you, Kathy, for
Thanks for having
sharing your experiences with us,
me.
and sharing so much about your experience of the MAP method.
Mhm.
I do thank you for everything you shared today.
Yeah, well, thank you. And I hope your listeners, are willing to take the plunge and, and do MAP if they haven't already. It is worth it. Mhm.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for joining us for the Flourish with Functional Nutrition podcast. Please listen again and remember to follow us and leave a review on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, or Stitcher. To learn more about the MAP Coaching Institute, visit mapcoachinginstitute.com. To learn more about Mind Remap for Health, my services, to sign up for a 15-minute free consultation, or to check out our podcast page, visit mindremapforhealth.com. Until the next time, be well and flourish. Content of this podcast, copyright 2021 by Twin Cities Nutritional Therapy. Music by Barbara Ben.